Other sessions are going to get pretty good and crowded here. I'm Michael Riversong. I'll be introducing most of the speakers, maybe probably all of the speakers throughout the next few days. That's my little job. And also, if you find a car with the lights left on, or if you lost your 3-year-old daughter or whatever, I'm the guy that announces that to everybody. So you know, just find me floating around somewhere and I'll try to help you out. Our first speaker is Mel-Sanders. I like Mel. He's a man after my own heart. Walter Russell once said, "I'm glad I quit school at the age of 10, otherwise it would have ruined me." Now, he managed to get through a little more school than that, but it didn't ruin him anyway, so he's doing well. He hangs out in Maryland these days, where he says the sky is white on the horizon. He worked in Peru in '85 and '86 with the idea of starting a jungle community, and he may still do that at some point. Now he's doing Project Self-Improvement. It's a workshop training people to use more brain power. This talk will be kind of a mini workshop, so he wants you to think of participating. Put yourself in that mode, because he's going to have things. You don't want to fall asleep tonight, that's for sure, because he'll have you up doing some interesting stuff. So here's Mel-Sanders.
Thank you, Michael. Once upon a time, there was a magnificent and prosperous pack of wolves that ruled a certain countryside. As this pack of wolves grew in numbers and stature, they became known to the rest of the wildlife of the countryside as the just and the mighty, for they always came out a winner whenever there was a conflict against their territory. Then one day, a wealthy magician came along and offered the leaders of this wolf pack a deal. He told them that he would transform them also into wealthy magicians if they just did one thing. They wouldn't win the next conflict. Instead, they were to drag this conflict on for years and then withdraw from it. You see, the magician could make a lot more money this way. The leaders agreed, but the pack members were very disillusioned, because they couldn't quite understand why it is that they weren't allowed to win this conflict. Many of them even became addicted to the loco weed addiction that was so popular in their area. And the pack members began to go home to their countryside. The rest of the wildlife members looked at them with disdain and disrespect. And without a victory, the wildlife citizens over the years became progressively demoralized. As crime and local weed addiction grew throughout the wildlife community, the controlling magicians decided to do a simple thing. They would turn all of the free wildlife members into humanoid robots. But they told these robots that they would be just as free as they were before. To instill the correct programs into the robots, they used a very highly technological device they invented called a television. The magicians made sure that mostly violent and unstable TV shows were aired, and predominantly crime and mayhem were accentuated in their TV news coverage. They advertised products the robots didn't need with loud, erotic, and must-have overtones. And as a consequence, robot kids began killing each other over fancy chrome-plated shoes. And some of them even rioted in the streets after watching how gang robots were supposed to act. The magicians held back breakthroughs in accelerated educational techniques to keep the robot population stupid and illiterate. They withheld natural health discoveries from the robots so that they were always in a state of disrepair and distress. They kept low-cost energy technology away from the robots so that they can make more money off of them through large monopolies. Occasionally, some robots began to realize they could transform themselves into individuals. An underground network of such individuals began to grow and present alternatives to the humanoid robots in health, energy, and educational technology. Every now and then, the magicians got nervous and jailed some of these individuals for presenting or attempting to market their technologies. Then one day, the magicians made a bold move to put a stop to any more individual action. They laser branded everybody with a barcode number on their foreheads, eliminated all money, and converted the monetary system into a credit-debit system. All financial transactions from then on had to involve the scanning of a citizen robot's laser number. As a result, money counterfeiting, bad check writing, stolen credit card usage, and crimes involving cash were almost eliminated overnight. Illegal alien robots, missing robots, and fugitive robots roaming the street were easily detected by a simple scan of their citizen robot number. The robot population began to be more easily manageable, and their inalienable right to irresponsible behavior was curtailed. What happened to the individuals? Those that could not be converted back to robots were simply disassembled for their body parts. But those that foresaw this eventual outcome years before had already prepared themselves with proper training and became fully developed future humans of the 21st century. Now, it's fitting that I lead off this conference, for my presentation revolves around bettering the human species through a self-improvement program I've developed. For without the development of the human equation, money-saving and more efficient technological devices will rarely ever get past the monetary power blocks pulling all our strings. And many of you understand what I'm saying. Perhaps I can prime your mind, so to speak, for the extraordinary developments that many of the presenters will discuss with you during this weekend. Much of such technology in the past has largely been ignored, criticized, or ridiculed by short-sighted, greedy men. But perhaps, with fully developed men and women, we can think of new and creative ways around these age-old obstacles. As Buckminster Fuller once said, society must simply stop backing into its future. Fully developed men and women can help the rest of society turn around and take a look at where it's going. When you realize the necessity for self-improvement and take action toward it, you can break away from this robot-like mentality syndrome and become an individual protagonist in your own play of life. I was at a party about a month ago, and I thought I'd ask a question of many of the participants there, many of the partygoers, and I asked them what the purpose of life was. It seemed like a pretty simple question, but you know, I was amazed at the diversity of answers I got. It was like what was obvious to me was different, no less obvious for them, but different in many instances. One individual even said that he thought the purpose of life was to have as much fun as possible before his ticket was punched. Now, no doubt, many of the ancient Greek philosophies, Stoicism, nihilism, atheism, all of these things probably evolved out of this mystery of what it's all about. And the ancient philosophers no doubt pondered it, and each one came up with their own idea and developed their own philosophy revolving around it. Anyway, the episode taught me one thing. People rarely think about what function or purpose they have as they float through life. We all look through the lens of our own experience in formulating a direction in life. To me, continual growth of one's mind, body, and soul is the purpose of our existence. And that's why I've developed the Future Human course to assist in this growth process. If you think that the inner development process, the health, happiness, is more important to you than your external possessions and those things that you all accumulate, then my message here tonight might have some meaning for you. Can you imagine what it would be like to have the brain-degenerating disease called Alzheimer's? Some of you may already have relatives that suffer from it, and some of you might already be suffering from some of the warning signals. For instance, I mean, it happens, you know, in your 40s and 50s, it starts slowly but surely, and you start making excuses for forgetfulness. Maybe some of you already forget during the day, by evening, what happened to you in the morning. Some of you say, I have no idea every time somebody poses a question to you. It seems to be a popular retort nowadays. Instead of figuring things out for yourself, this is the sloughing off of the responsibility of coming up with an answer. Using the phrase, I can't, so much that you've lost confidence in your own ability to handle even simple tasks. There's another cute little phrase, I can. You know, kids usually use it, but when adults use it, asking other people to do things for you so much because you were too brain fatigued to do them yourselves. If Alzheimer's is an hereditary disease, then why can one identical twin contract it and the other not? And this is exactly what has happened in many instances. Why is it that primitive cultures rarely evidence any cases of senility or Alzheimer's, but that during this century alone our modern society has had a disproportionate increase in the number of cases of both maladies almost every year in the U.S. alone? When you don't use what you got upstairs, you lose large portions of it. Now, a lot of people have talked in terms of using 80%, 90% of your brain, or I mean 10% or 20%, and losing or not using 80 or 90% of your brain. Now, suppose your brain looked like this. Well, that's a shriveled up lump. Of course, it's made of clay, like we all started. That's not a happy prospect. But since people have something on the line on these guesstimations of 15, 20 billion neurons in their brain, 100,000 brain cells lost each day doesn't bother most people. But why lose any? Why is it that we have this die-off rate that neurologists come up with? You know, animals don't seem to suffer from that die-off rate. In fact, there have been many experiments where they have shown that when needed, brain tissue will actually grow in a bird's brain, for instance, with new song. Say they taught canary a finch's song, and they've actually found and weighed the canary's brain. We very well can't do that ourselves. You know, we can't give humans a battery of exercises and then take the brain out and weigh it. Well, we can do that dispassionately with canaries and finches. And so they found that actual areas of the canary or finch, whichever way they went, would add brain tissue. Now, Johns Hopkins just came up with another experiment where they were actually growing brain tissue in a petri dish or in the laboratory. So the old idea that you cannot replace your brain tissue, I think, is slowly but surely being replaced by a new idea that you certainly can. And the more you use your brain, the more you electrically spark it, the more exercise that you engage in. And it doesn't mean some kind of we must do our exercises or something like this. It involves a lot of different things. Appreciating your sensory environment. I myself wouldn't like to result in that kind of a lump there. It would kind of shudder me if I thought that I was going to wind up on somebody's slab there and opening up and finding that. If you use your brain in a diversified way, that's far better than a specialized way. And our nation is becoming inundated, and there's estimates of something on the line of knowledge is doubling every 2 years. With this inundation of knowledge, our way of dealing with it has been specialization. That's an inadequate way, by the way, because here we got a specialist, you know, he's a left lobe brain surgeon. Now we got a right lobe problem, so he's got to call in another specialist or something. You know, we used to have well diversified doctors. Now we're getting to the probably left lower lobe. You might get to the point where the left occipital portion or something to that ridiculous will be what one specialist will have only to do, and then everybody else will refer to someone else for each other section of the brain. Specialization is an anathema to the civilization as I see it now, but it's been our inadequate way to cope with the influx of knowledge. I say inadequate because people basically feel helpless when tasked beyond their so-called training. 200 years ago, our founding forefathers oftentimes were very diversified. Sometimes, and of course many of you have read the histories of Jefferson, Washington, Franklin, and you know these are very great men, have done diversified things, had many diversified abilities. Many times they had to be, at that time, a home builder, well digger, they had to do their own wells, mason, blacksmith, hunter, trapper, writer, musician, artist. They were well-rounded individuals and came out with a well-rounded mental equilibrium, and they were stable. Right now, mental instability in this country is reigning supreme as a consequence. We see drug addiction and crime increasing every year. Mind exercises can help you out, and that's what I think we'll do right now, as a matter of fact. Please close your eyes. Let's do a simple one here. Now relax, close your eyes, picture in your mind's eye the person sitting on your right, or on your left, if the case may be, if you're on the end of an aisle. Try to recall as much definition as you can about that person. It might be a stranger, might be somebody familiar to you. What are the notable features in their face? What distinguishing characteristics can you recall? Do they have glasses? What size? What height? What colors in their clothes? Now open your eyes and take a look and see what you missed. Besides the fact that pretty surprising sometimes, isn't it? Besides the fact that most people go blank in times of emergency, a police officer just hates to have 4 or 5 witnesses to a crime. I mean, that, oh gosh. He gets 4 or 5 renditions of how the crime took place. And the way he actually goes about solving it is getting little pieces that maybe had a common factor. Because nobody remembered it the same way. It was just as real to them, but they all got it all kind of buggered up somehow in their head. They didn't get it quite right. Now all it takes to correct this is to be conscious for a few extra seconds during any of these episodes. And being conscious, oh, you say, what do you mean? My eyes are open, I'm conscious, right? A lot of people think they are conscious. People have tunnel vision sometimes going down the street. You get into a rut. You go back and forth to work. You eat, sleep, come home, watch TV, go the same thing over and over and over. And usually you take in very little sensory information. It's like zombies going or robots going down the street. And if somebody were to ask you, well, you know, did you see such and such over there, or did you remember, you may have gone right by a notable featured building and not even taken notice of it. Well, that's the visual aspect. Well, you may have gone through odors. Some people will pass through a skunk odor. I know I have gone down the road, and you'll notice that pretty quick. Or you might also notice maybe the fragrance when hyacinths are in season. But there are many subtleties that just go right by you. Now, Helen Keller was an interesting person. And when somebody came into the room, she could identify them by their scent alone. Now, she wasn't born with this talent. She had to learn. But how many of you can identify anyone else by their scent alone? That's pretty phenomenal. Unless, of course, they have a particularly odorous scent. But she didn't rely on just somebody's BO. She was in sync with heightening her olfactory sense to a very, very high degree. Now, hold out 2 fingers in front of you. I'll give you another illustration. Hold out 2 fingers in front of you. Your conscious awareness can be flashed around. Now, if you were to fixate your focal point on one finger and with your peripheral side vision look at your other finger without removing your focal point from this finger, you've just now shifted your conscious awareness into your peripheral vision. You say, well, I've done that before. Okay, well, let's extend that a little bit further. Let's move your fingers now without doing any different. In other words, keep your focal point on this one finger as it moves across, but your peripheral vision on this other finger, and keep that steadily as it goes across. Now, what you've done is you have successfully looked at both fingers. one with your focal point and the other with your peripheral, even if it was moving. Now, ninja assassins, I've been told, never look at a person with their focal point of their vision, because there's some kind of a mysterious essence that comes out of the mind. And so they train themselves to observe mainly with their peripheral vision. When you can actually, while you're looking at me, you can look to the sides and perceive various colors of the individuals, or like the walls or whatever. You can look at the top, the bottom. It's kind of interesting. And you can also manipulate it to a point whereas you can look at me straight away and then with your conscious awareness roll it around in a complete circle. I know your eyes will tend to move. And spiral it in. But with practice, you can actually utilize what they call the parafoveal cells in the back of your retina. Usually people only use that little, it's like a dull pencil point that's at the back of the retina, and that's called the fovea, and that's a high concentration of cells. And so that's where all of our conscious awareness flows through, usually. But you can extend that to your parafoveal cells if you want. You can hold some playing cards up and start distinguishing at various levels here and see how good you can get. And after a while, you get better. Now that's utilizing your conscious awareness in a different way than you're used to. But it's also sparking some unused areas of the brain when you do that. Because the parafoveal cells are usually connected to reflexive areas. You know, a ball comes over, you go back like this. Well, that is because your peripheral vision picked up on it. Somebody swings a fist at you, you'll go back like that too, probably, for the same reason. You don't want to get hit. If you throw your conscious awareness into your parafoveal, though, you're now making conscious use of it, the parafoveal cells, and that's different, and that's like establishing new circuitry. Unfortunately, a lot of people go on automatic pilot, but primitive cultures don't seem to be like this. And I'm drawing these parallels because I feel that modern society has a difficult time with utilizing its brain power unnecessarily. Primitive cultures are a lot different. They drink in their environment. I was living in Peru in '85 and '86 in the jungle. As Michael was pointing out, I was attempting to establish a community down there. Terrorists and drug dealers eventually kind of made it uncomfortable. But we had a Shipibo Indian one time that led us into the jungle, just an exploratory venture. One time, he either spotted something or he sensed it. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but all of a sudden he stopped the line and he pointed. And then I was a couple, 2, 3 people down, and he said, you know, there was a snake. And I said, snake? Where is it? And he says, he doesn't know yet. And I said, well, how does he know it's there? He says, the poisonous snake. He knows. Don't worry about it. So he's looking like this, holding us at bay. He's looking like this, and then he homes in on it. And then he moved us around. It was a very poisonous bushmaster, which is the largest pit viper in the world. And they're very aggressive, and they can attack moving people going through the jungle. So it was a good precaution. Then he went over and, of course, killed it with a machete after he got us safe. So I tried to pick his brain, or through the interpreter. How did you do this? You know, one of the guys said, yeah, I think he smells it. I think he smells it. Smells a snake? My gracious. That's even beating Helen Keller. I said, smells a snake. And that distance away, oh, it's got to be something more than that. Or maybe it's a combination of subtleties he was picking up. And then, in other words, slight noise, slight rustle was different than maybe a bird or an insect that was doing the same rustle. I don't know. But I think that when you get your senses heightened to that degree, there's an intuitive sense that also clicks in after that. And you suddenly are able to perceive things in different ways that you previously weren't aware of. And they do it as a matter of course, not thinking anything about it. And I guess our American Indians were quite similar when they didn't have lazy reservations and modern society to deal with. It seems that, like I say before, they don't suffer from the same age-old diseases either as we do, of senility and Alzheimer's and brain degenerating things, because they're always utilizing what they have. When a hunter goes out to hunt his prey, he's got to be perceptive of everything going on. We don't have to be that way. We can go back and forth to work like zombies and complete our day in perfect safety. So therefore, 100,000 brain cells a day or more will be a natural thing for modern man until he understands that, hey, I don't have to take and lose these if I don't wish to. I can choose to stimulate, crackle, and tweak those brain cells like I would going down to the gym or the isometric program that used to be so popular years ago. Well, this is like brain isometrics. And what I profess people should do more is exercise the brain in a slight way. Just to, in other words, if you send an electrical charge through a certain area, then you've activated it. It says, oh, yeah, you still want me. Okay, I won't die. You know, but if you never send a charge through the thing, well, okay, you guys down there, your controllers, you don't want me, so I'm going to die on you. And that's what happens. People visualize. Let me get, rambling again here. Let's do one right here before we run out of time. Drinking in your surroundings here, perhaps. Let's flash your conscious awareness to, can you hear the rattling of the air conditioner just ever so slightly? Maybe you hear the flushing toilet over there going through the walls of the, or maybe you hear the conversation outside. So you can flash your conscious awareness at different locations with your auditory sense. Now how about the pressure of your buttocks against the chair, or your feet against the floor, or the cloth on your legs. So you can flash that anywhere you like. Now you're using tactile sense, you can use auditory sense, you can use the visual sense. You can get into your taste buds and say, okay, what does it taste like? Is it dry? Some Indians in South America can taste the air so that they know whether, you know, just, and some other people with rheumatoid arthritis can do this too. They know when a storm's coming, I understand, or lumbago, right? But they can actually taste the air and know whether a storm is coming. That's interesting. These are ways of dealing with your senses that we rarely involve ourselves with. And of course, most of these things, if I hadn't called your attention to them, you'd be oblivious to them. I mean, it's like, who worries about the pressure of his foot against the floor, unless he's got a nail in it or something. But doing this drill once a day, or periodically throughout your day, going back and forth to work, is a very small thing, and it'll keep activating certain areas that might otherwise slough away and deteriorate. So why not do it? It's a simple drill. In addition to this, you probably won't be as susceptible when you get back home to the subliminal input from televisions. Gosh, they're hitting you right where it hurts all the time. You actually think all these movie stars and sports enthusiasts really are interested in the products that they advertise? Hardly. But why do you buy the products? You've been suckered into that, and they spend billions of dollars every year because you don't think about it. You're like, oh, this says, yeah, I gotta go that way. But using the cognitive process of your brain will largely curtail that. You'll start thinking, well, why is it that I want this? Is there a real reason that I want this? Why should I buy it? But they're triggering you with these stimulus response mechanisms all day long. They are doing almost subliminal blips now. They're not quite the 1/50th or 100th of a second like they used to have tachistoscopic blips back in 58, 59 when they would flash popcorn and all that. But right now you'll see a diving, sexy woman and guy diving into the ocean or something, and they'll flash that maybe real fast, and then they'll go over to something else that maybe a big roaring jet. Well, how is a roaring jet going to sell beer? But nevertheless, it means power. And it connotes something to your brain that stimulates you or a section of the population, not all. That's why they trigger so many different things, because each person is different. And then suddenly one of the triggers will hit you, and oh, I got to go buy that beer. Boy, that's great beer. They never show people stumbling over drunk or anything like that. They always show really fine things about what the result of drinking beer is going to be. You know, they're not stupid. All right, in your mind's eye, and you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed, picture the word exercising and count the letters there. Now, you know, I know some people, I've been in workshops where people say, I swear to me, they don't visualize. No, don't visualize. You ever have a sexual fantasy? Oh, yeah. Well, what do you call that? That's visualizing, right? But a lot of people visualize differently. A lot of people don't visualize in a visual manner. So they won't see it up on the board. How many letters are in the word exercise? How many say 9? How many say 10? Yeah, okay, good. All right, how about the word determination? Here's a good one. Is that one can be sounded out in syllables? How many say 12? How many say 13? Okay. Now, a lot of people that are auditorily oriented will sound it out. They won't see it on the board. They don't prefer that, or they feel that they can't even do it sometimes. So they don't even have the facility to paint it or chalk it up on their mental blackboard. So what they'll do is sound it out, and they'll now count it that way. It was interesting, one of the exercises in my manual is on blindfold chess. Now, I can bumble my way through a mental game of chess, but I'm a visual person, and I have naturally assumed anybody's going to play chess is going to be a visual person too. They're going to see the pieces, right? How else can you play chess? But in my humility, I sent a letter over to my idol, George Koltanowski, who used to hold a world record in blindfold chess. He plays 34 games simultaneously in his mind with his back to the audience, right? So I kind of sheepishly said, will you correct this for errors? See if this exercise is befitting. And so the Grandmaster writes back and he said, you're going to have to read my book. Okay, I'll read your book. Give me your book. And I read it, and I was flabbergasted. His method, he didn't visualize the board at all. In other words, I can visualize the board. I can move around it. I can go over to the black side or the white side. But he doesn't see the board at all in his head. How in the world can you play a game of chess in your head, or 34 games in your head, without seeing the blasted board? What he does, he reiterates all of the moves. So here we got, his back is toward everybody. And the commentator says, all right, board number 21 is ready to make his 17th move. And he goes, and I'm thinking, you know, if I were able to do 34 games, I would flip through the boards, right? No, he goes, auditory. He's auditory, so he reiterates in time-distorted fashion all of the moves. So here he is on board 21, and he's going pawn to king 4, pawn to king 4, knight to king bishop 3, knight to king 0, all these, and he does it very quickly, and then comes up with the whole line. I mean, that's another one of the exercises in my manual about time distortion and how to acquire that ability with your own volition. A lot of people do it automatically anyway, in some instances, but this guy was an auditory chess player. And then he also said in his book that there are people that are kinesthetic players that don't reiterate verbally in their mind or see it visually. What they do is feel it. They don't know how they do it. You ask them and they say, I know that how I'm moving it, but I'm not sure exactly. I can't tell you. I don't reiterate it, I don't see it, and I just do it. And that's their method. So the mind is extremely interesting, and many people are prone to one or another method of visualization. You can actually be all of them, or at least practice them, and become better at it. All right. How about the word anti-disestablishmentarianism? Let me see if I can write that one on the board. Now that used to be the longest word in the dictionary. Whoa. Anyway, until there's a lot of medical terms that have taken their place, and it seems as if I should have wrote smaller. Anyway, it's 28 letters, in case nobody was counting. Probably be better, even I would probably sound that one out myself, because otherwise you'd have it wrapped around your head, I think, if you try to visualize it. You'd have a long blackboard. Now, with as much clarity, we'll just do this one more visualization, which I think is important. With as much clarity as possible, cut a lemon in half, a sour lemon, you know, go like this. And take that half a lemon and squeeze that sour juice into your mouth. Oh, she's got a real reaction. She hates lemons, is that it? Squeeze that sour juice in your mouth, right? Now, when you do this, if you do it with clarity, you should be salivating. And that's a real good example of the power and effect of visualization on the human body. It's a simple example. Now, we discount a lot of that. In other words, you're into brain processes all day long. You're thinking of different things. You don't think they're having an effect on your body. Of course they're having an effect on your body. You're into worry, guilt, depression, or some other negative scenario. That's having an effect on your body. People don't realize it. Well, that doesn't mean that it's not having an effect. And the effect, unfortunately, is not a beneficial one. Oftentimes, and there's some experiments, of course, again, they cannot cut up human bodies like they can animals, but so they're limited with how much in-depth slicing they can do. But they have found that Streptococcus and Staphylococcus bacteria proliferate enormously when you have a negative atmosphere about yourself. Dental caries increases. And a lot of people, well, we got into a conversation before about why the Aborigines and Indians don't have so much problem with their teeth. Well, sometimes they have these chew sticks, I know, in different ways, but they certainly don't brush them, right? So why is it that they don't have too much dental caries? Well, they're not that much into this negative thought atmosphere that is modern society's big plague. That's part of it. There could be a lot of nutritional things as well, of course, but this is a combination factor. In other words, we got nutrition and the way you deal with it mentally. There's some people that can eat a handful of tacks and other people can't. You can deal with what you bring into your body, you can transmute it. It depends on you and your skills and your abilities and what you've learned. Another thing with visualization, which was, I think, pretty interesting, when they did two samplings, they took one group. Well, first they took these two groups and they had them shooting hook shots from the foul line. And then they found out how many they could shoot. Just wanted to find out where they were after a certain sampling. Yeah, okay. And so one group, they had shoot hook shots from the foul line for 20 minutes a day for a couple weeks. The other group, and many of you probably read this same research report, and the other group, they didn't do anything at all. In reality, what they did was shoot the hook shots in their mind from the foul line for 20 minutes a day for 2 weeks. Now, one group's doing it real, the other group's doing it surreal. One is doing it in reality, and one is not. At the end of the 2-week period, they tested them to see how much improvement they had, and the one that was doing it in their imagination almost matched the improvement. Very, very slight difference. Almost matched the improvement of those that were actually practicing in reality. Now, what does this mean? This means that we could utilize this talent of visualization much to our benefit, if we wish to. There's great power in repetitive visualization, and of course, negative visualization is what most people empower themselves with negatively. I mean, worry, guilt, depression, that's just a scenario of something negative that's happened or is going to happen or you think it's going to happen over and over and over, and of course, the result is you're going to feel rotten. And you don't have to. If you switched it to a scenario of positive visualizations, of course you say, "Oh, well, that's tougher than you really can't do that just like that." Well, yeah, that might be so. You have to be a little more conscious. You have to acknowledge when you're in that. Well, oh no, maybe I want to be like that. Well, that's probably really why you're there. But then the people that don't, they say that, hey, look, I do want to change. Now, these people can change. Let me bear with me for a minute, and we'll give you an illustration, a simple one, where we set up a neurological circuit of benefit to you. Let's anchor a stimulus response for bold self-confidence. Bold, powerful self-confidence. All right, close your eyes again and remember, just bear with me for this. Close your eyes and remember a time when you felt bold, powerful self-confidence, when everything was going your way and you were in complete control of the situation. You were assertive, you knew exactly what you were going to do and how you were going to do it, and you were highly motivated. Now, if some of you can't recall one of those kinds of experiences, then what I would suggest to you is to create one. What it would feel like if you had such an experience in your past. Now step into that and fully associate yourself with that feeling and get up to the peak of that, and then I want you to grab your middle finger of your right hand with your thumb, the middle knuckle, and open your eyes for a minute to see what I'm talking about. I guess you should look. There's your middle finger, your right hand. Grab it like so. All right, now get back to the peak of that experience and what it feels like, and then just apply pressure and squeeze. And what we're doing, we're applying a tactile stimulus for this particular old or created experience. All right, that's a slight portion of the neurological circuit. Now hold on to that feeling and get back into it. And this time what I want you to do is add to it. You know, you're just going to squeeze the knuckle. What you're going to do is you're going to add the auditory sense, and you're going to say right in the tonality of bold, powerful self-confidence. So now we have a tactile, now we're adding the auditory, and what we're going to do is say that simultaneously at the beginning or at the peak of that experience. In other words, get back to that peak and that feeling of bold self-confidence that you had way, way back or created, and say, right. Okay, nobody's saying right, so nobody's creating this. A lot of times this would be probably better in a less of a group atmosphere and you don't feel so inhibited. You can add to this, and add to this, and add to this. You can add the various senses. You can add to it and breathe in a color, for instance, that connotes to you confidence at the simultaneous point of that peak. You can add each one of them. You can add a smell if you had a particular scent or something that was your favorite. But you would be able to, at that point, after you've anchored that properly, you might take a couple, 2, 3 times of going through this for you, and you can do this back in your room. And it's a very effective way of creating a stimulus response anchor for a state of mind, in this case, confidence, self-confidence. Now, what will you use this for? Well, what do you mean? You can't use self-confidence? Everybody is a titan here? Is that it? Anytime you suddenly feel a surge of, say, fear or doubt or nervousness or some other kind of undesirable thing that you're not liking, or you get into one of your guilt trips or your worry trips or your depression trips, then you could nullify it, negate it, because there's a mysterious thing that happens in the mind when you confront negativity with positivity. Positivity cancels it out and either overshadows it or both of them are canceled out. And then, of course, you can regroup and reestablish the anchor later on. And that's the usefulness for it. Okay, so nobody wants to say right. But you should feel powerful after that if you really did it. And you can fire off that anchor anytime you like. Anyhow, I've given you the mechanism, and if you remember it tonight, you might want to practice it in your room and employ it at some point. Now, many of the so-called modern conveniences of the day have produced unfortunate ruts that we get into, and we many times get stressed, out of shape when there's a change in it. Now, a lot of these techniques will be valuable because of that. I have a whole manual filled with one end of the spectrum to the other, but people basically, I feel, need to get into self-improvement more, and that's why I call my project self-improvement. if people suddenly took it upon themselves, a lot of people do go down to the gym and they work out, they take martial arts, or they might get into an aerobics class or something like that. But gosh, the brain, who wants to exercise that? Gosh, yeah, I just learned you guys don't want to exercise it, even with this little bit of saying right? It's a big deal to a lot of people. You know, I probably could get you jumping up and down in an aerobics fashion real quick here, you know, if I was an aerobics teacher or something. But to do a little stimulation of the brain, wow, that's a big deal. And yet you all need it. I need it. And once you get hooked on it, it's just like when you get into shape aerobics-wise. You want more. And you want more. And you want to share it with other people. And that's a great feeling. You know, you can have a great feeling physically. Why not have a great feeling mentally? Why suffer from this 100,000 brain cell loss every day when you don't have to? Well, I don't think anybody's convinced. I think because you've got 15 billion brain cells, you must feel that you can afford it. And you can, really. That's true. That's true. But some people suffer in a more sliding down way, and that's where we got these senility and Alzheimer's. And they're a very unfortunate disease. If you ever met anybody like that, they're extremely unfortunate. You know, here we got a well-educated vice president now. You know, it's become the butt of everybody's humor in the news. Gosh, this poor guy, he's got to be coaxed. What was it? They coaxed him a lot before he had any. He was talking about Mars once, and said something about, you know, they prompted him sufficiently, they thought. But then somebody asked him, well, do you think there's any water on Mars? Well, there must be. There's a lot of canals up there. Gosh, you see his assistants went down like this. Oh, we thought we covered everything, but he came up with something new. And then when he came back from Costa Rica, gosh, the guy came back. He says, you know, the next time I visit Latin America, I'm gonna have to speak Latin. Where is this guy coming from? I mean, no wonder. I mean, it's nothing to do. Education is great, but you got to have something more than that. You can be an educated idiot, you know. I mean, you got to have something more than that. You got to stimulate that gray matter up there. Education is fine, and getting all those kudos and having all that, that's fine. But it's short-sighted, and a lot of people get into these specialized ruts, and they're not even aware of it until this emergency pops up, or something out of the blue. Blah blah blah. You know, they feel helpless. Why don't you yell fire one day, you know, and see how many cognitive processes we have in this room. How many people are thinking, well, that door opens that way. No, they're not thinking, they're rushing, and then everybody dies in a pileup. You know, how many times that happened? People don't think enough, they react. Gut, boom, boom, you know. Anyway. Yeah, we've got a few more minutes. Why are citizens in here's another thing that's really fascinated me. Why are citizens in the United States so conditioned into thinking that money solves all problems? Wow. You know, if money solved all problems, since we, United States, spend more money on our problems than any other nation in the world, we shouldn't have any. You know, obviously that's not true. You know, the magnitude of a problem, cancer, AIDS, whatever, oh, you spend $250 million on that, that means that's a big problem because they got a dollar sign attached to it. Now, whoever invented the dollar sign as the magnitude of a problem, I don't ever know. Suppose some missionary doctor discovered an herb, and of course this may have happened, I won't say we're on tape, see. Suppose some missionary doctor discovered an herb that was a cure to cancer. And he figured out that he could bring that back for $5 a dosage and cure cancer. You think they would like that? Gosh, you know, everybody knows this is a $250 million a year problem. You can't have any $5, $10 solution. That's crazy. You know, that blows it out of the water, doesn't it? People don't want simple solutions, low-cost solutions, natural solutions. They want to blow everything out of proportion and take these big dollar signs on it. Intelligent men and women diversified men and women, people that use this upstairs. They're the ones that solve problems, not money. Right? Why is it so normal in this country, too, to be sick? You know, who invented that? You know, I mean, gosh, you know, everybody's got a medicine chest of pills and popping pills, and you know, a young doctor told me, he said the first thing that a doctor learns in medical school is that 50% of all the patients are suffering from hypochondriacal ailments. He said that's why our prescriptions work so well. I mean, they were real, I mean, to the person, because your mind can create something extremely wrong with you, just as the placebo that you take afterwards can get rid of it. Why is it that citizens forget so much in this country? And that's a big problem. They're making mistakes right and left. It's getting to the point that not a single newspaper isn't covering some new oil spill. From 3 Mile Island to car accidents, everything is on the increase here. And naturally, insurance rates are going up comparably. You know, it's getting to the point where people are finding it normal to screw up in this country, and that's not good. What we need to do is rectify that, get people more responsible for what they're doing, get them more diversified, get them more able to handle situations without going through stressful scenarios, and then as a result screwing up so some manufacturer has to take the brunt of it later on. Or individuals, in some cases, they actually throw the captains of these oil spills in the clinker. Well, some people actually in this country are pushing for a 4-day work week. I don't know how successful that's going to be, but from what I understand, and of course I know we got Nakamatsu here, Dr. Nakamatsu, 6-day work weeks in Japan are normal, and they enjoy that. We hate our 5-day work week. Well, why is it that there's such a difference? You know, they enjoy 6 days and they feel good about what they're doing, and we hate, you know, what is the phrase I heard one commentator on New York, he said, hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. You know, the midday of the week now. We got to look forward to Friday when we can hang it all loose, you know, and get drunk and feel miserable on Monday. Well, in any case, I think that there's a solution to every problem that we have, and many of the presenters here this weekend have some of those solutions. What we have to do as a body of individuals, and I'm saying individuals as opposed to robots, what we have to do is actually make sure that these creative discoveries are not lost, that they're not ridiculed, they're not criticized, but they're explored with open-mindedness. And then maybe we'll be able to have surface some of these solutions for mankind to take seriously. And actually, this has been a pretty busy century. I mean, if you think of it, we got automobiles and airplanes, unfortunately burning on petroleum products. We have, what was it, from Kitty Hawk to the dropping of the first A-bomb on Japan only took 40 years, and 20 years later on, we were on the moon. Gosh, that's pretty good as far as technology. It's not so much as far as us. You know, we've gone downhill. So what I'd like is for the human species, the human equation, to catch up with our technological advancements and developments. And then we'll probably find more creative ways of getting around these obstacles that are constantly buggering up our progress. At least that's my feeling. Well, I'll be giving a Future Human Course workshop next weekend. Any of the people here interested in it. What it entails is 2 12-hour days, and I go through 127 mind exercises. I have a home study manual as well available. I'll give you all flyer if you like. And the home study manual has 217 mind exercises. And I mean, I've been told that I don't know this through, well, yeah, I've researched it myself. I don't think there's a manual or a course out there that's got as much as mine. And of course, because I profess diversity, I guess that's natural. And I think you'll be entertained in an extremely interesting way. I like it, and I enjoy the opportunity of giving it to you if you wish. Like I say, it's probably going to be next weekend, not this weekend coming up, because it does involve 2 days. And so those people that maybe are going out of the state possibly want to host a workshop can let me know as well. Any of those that are Colorado individuals can maybe make it next weekend, but we can talk about it at social hour. As I understand, the social hour is right here, so let me leave you with a brainstorming problem here. Here's a way out problem here. We got a lot of good thinkers here, do we? They're all saying right. I guess they must be. You got a lot of good thinkers here, right? All right, well, you know, you don't have to be a good thinker. You can, you know, lose 100,000 brain cells or more. Who cares? It's nothing. It's just spit, you know. It's nothing. Anyway, here's the problem. And what I'm going to do is write an article about this conference after the fact, and the synthesis of the best answers, or what I feel is a pretty good solution, I'll put in the article as a result of the brainstorming session after my presentation. And what this will involve is simple. All right. How can we utilize the raw lightning power to our benefit in some way as an energy source? Now, Benjamin Franklin found it's not too difficult to channel electricity from the air, right? Okay, well, I mean, we made a lot of fun with that in cartoons and everything. So we can always pull that lightning source down. But since it's so sudden, since it's so devastating, who wants to pull it down to their area? But, and we were talking about this before, and maybe some other guys in the audience and gals can come up with some alternatives. We're talking about it in, you know, Alabama has the first compressed air energy plant in this country. I don't know whether you know anything about compressed air energy, but it's kind of interesting in a way. It has nothing to do with the revolutionary developments here. But what they do is they use salt domes or some cave or something or other, and then they, off-peak hours, excess from their turbines can then be cycled into this, compress the air into this cave, and then when they need it later on, it can be pumped back out as an energy source because the compressed air comes back out. So you're thinking, well, okay, suppose we had a high lightning area. I think Oklahoma is a high tornado area. I know there's a lot of high lightning prone areas. And we also have maybe one of these salt domes or caves, right? And suppose we were able to real fast capture that. It came down, compressed the air, and then we captured it, bottled it up like a little genie in a lamp, right? And then later on, we just let it off as an energy source. Well, I don't know what would be involved with that, but maybe some of the technicians might be able to come up. That was one idea. Another one was to convert the maybe a thin layer of water from the immense charge of the lightning, maybe convert a thin layer of water into steam and utilize the steam later on as an energy source. So I don't know. You brainstorm it. Come up with some alternatives. I'll commingle with you all. If you have any questions, probably because of the late hour, you can deal with them during the social hour. I don't see Stevens, so nobody's bumped me off yet. Oh, you're bumping me off? So if you have any questions about that, but I'd like you to think about it, and then, you know, if somebody comes up with something, see, people's experience, each person's experiences are naturally different. And when you pose a problem to somebody that's brainstorming something, suddenly he doesn't even have to have a high education. That's a marvelous thing about brainstorming. When it was first created, they used 7 people that had no inkling whatsoever about the problem, and 1 person that was an expert that could kind of moderate and go into it. And so they gave some kind of outlandish problem, and all these people were giving their input. Ridiculous, doesn't matter what it was. You know the process of brainstorming. You're not allowed to do any negativity. You're only allowed to spew forth all of these positive solutions or possible solutions. And afterwards, then the moderator will take a synthesis of all of that and distill it down into what hopefully would be a workable solution. But it's fascinating that you don't have to be an expert in the problem that you're brainstorming. Only one person has to, more or less, to guide the rest. And so you guys don't have to know anything about lightning. You know, you might have some, way back in the past, some experience that would trigger something else, and you say, yeah, I can put that in a tin can, right? Because if I have a titanium tin, you know, it might be silly, but it might work. You know, there's a special one that compacted lightning in a special way. It was some alloy from a meteorite that just landed on the planet, or something, right? Okay, well, in any case, you've been a marvelous audience, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. Michael?
Thank you, Mel. I have two very...